You get that day that 6-1 Baker Mayfield thing is super fool's gold. It's so crazy that it happened that way, and I just can't wait for it to play out. A healthy Bengals team handles the Browns.
All right, welcome to the Jungle, Bengals fans. I'm your host, Kyle Phelps, and we got a good one for you guys today. But first, if y'all could take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel, I'd really appreciate it. Really helps me out. But anyway, the Bengals had a fantastic and much-needed bye week. They saw the Ravens lose to the Dolphins, which was hilarious. The Browns get blown out by the Patriots, also hilarious. And the Steelers tie with the Lions, which was both hilarious and infuriating. Suddenly, the Bengals are right back in the mix of everything, despite their 2-game skid against the Jets and the Browns. But anyway, I got Zim WhoDey. I got Zim WhoDey from the Orange is the New Black podcast this week to help me wrap up the bye week before we move on to talking about the road trip to Las Vegas to play a Raiders team that is on a bit of a skid. Say what's up, Zim.
Hello, world. How's everybody doing? Fresh off the bye week, feeling good about myself, feeling good about where we're at. You also forgot to mention, too, the Chargers and the Broncos both losing were pretty big for our wild card playoff hopes as well, too.
Well, that is true. The Kansas City Chiefs, well, sort of. The Chargers losing actually put the Kansas City Chiefs in control of the AFC West, so now the Chargers are a team that we would be potentially competing with for a wild card spot, whereas before we weren't. Before we were competing with the Chiefs, and we still had the Chiefs on our schedule.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it. To me, the Chiefs, though, and I've been saying this all season, are the most dangerous team in football, and I don't know why people thought like just because they had a couple of game streaks where they didn't do well, like this league is wild. To me, the Chiefs are the most dynamic offense. They're the team to probably beat. I mean, you could make an argument, I guess, for the Rams, but now that Robert Woods tore his ACL, they're one less weapon, whatever. But the Chiefs, like I never looked at them like they're like some wild card thing. They could win out. They're that explosive. When you have that many points that you could put on the board, you are never out of it. And you got a quarterback like improvising like Pat Mahomes, you can't fall off. There is no script for that. There is no defense that can stop that. So I guess in my mind, I just never thought I was really even competing with the Chiefs. But that is a really good point that you make. It's like now we're lined up with the Chargers. But the good thing about that game is we get to play those boys head up too.
Well, yeah, we do get to play them as well. This coming week we got the Raiders, and that's a very weird situation going on there. I've never really seen a team like I know they overcame the John Gruden situation, but it just seems like at this point they've had John Gruden, they've had Henry Ruggs, they've had Damon Arnett, and it just feels like way too much for a team to overcome with just everything happening in succession like that. And I mean, you see that in the way that they lost to the Giants, and then I mean, you saw what just happened against the Chiefs.
Right. I mean, I played football in high school, and I've had stuff happen to teams or guys get kicked off a team or different things like that. And in no way, shape, or form am I comparing myself to an NFL team. But when you have like a really good leader, which I feel like David Carr. Derek Carr. I was like, hold up. I said Derek Carr. I feel like Derek Carr is a really, really good leader. And people really, really underestimate his leadership skills. If you've ever seen any of the players talk about him, think about him coming out of those situations, the message he had for John Gruden. Think about the message where he had for Ruggs, where he's saying Ruggs needs love. If he needs love, like I'm here for him and stuff. Like, I think when you have like a real leader at quarterback, where we didn't really have a strong leader like in our locker room for years until we got Joe Burrow, it changes a lot of dynamics of a football team, and you never feel like you're out of it. And then this is the other side of it. Just flat out, players got to get paid, and they got to pay for a check. So just because a couple things happen around you don't mean that my son, my dog, my mom ain't expecting this paycheck this Sunday, so I got to go and ball out regardless of whatever's happening around me. I bet you ask anybody on the lines right now, like, am I giving up or am I quitting or something like that? You can't afford to. You just like that's just the realest answer ever. Like players need to get paid. So I didn't think that they would fall. Prior to Gruden going out, the most unfortunate thing about it is they look really, really good in a couple of those games because they always get those like late night Monday night games or they had like I think they had a third. I watched them one night. I got a bunch of the guys on my fantasy football team. I was like, man, that's a team you don't really want to mess with. The one thing I will say is they give up a good amount of points. They've always given up 21 or more, except in 2 games, I believe. So for them, I think putting points up and being consistent is going to take a hit because Henry Ruggs was really, really important to their team. On defense, like we've seen some pass rushes this year. I don't know if we've seen one from both edge positions at this level. I could be wrong, but facing DeJavion Clowney and Myles Garrett is that's a good tandem, but it's really about Myles Garrett, right? And Clowney feasts off of it. Let me tell you, the Raiders don't need Yannick Ngakoue doesn't need Mad Max to get him sacks. He's a force on his own. So both of their edge positions, guys, which is a strength of the Bengals this year, but people don't want to point that out. The Bengals tackle position is a top 5, arguably top 10 at the very least tackle tandem in the National Football League this year with Reef and Jonah Williams.
So with the Bengals coming off the bye week, then like I said at the in the intro, I really felt like this is one of the best bye weeks that any team has had in a very long time, just because of what happened around the Bengals. But we also can't forget that it was looking rough there for a minute, and I felt like the Bengals came into a bye week at the perfect time. Like they really needed a chance to just sit back and reset. And you were talking about, teams like the Bengals have never really had like, that great leader at quarterback before. So, my hope is that, with the players loving Zach Taylor as much as they do, and then his leadership abilities, and then Joe Burrow's leadership abilities. What do you think about this team coming off the bye? Do you think we can get back to where we were?
100%. I don't know. Usually I'm gonna ask you though. Usually when you come off of a bye or you're going into a bye, you're always talking about like guys getting healthy and stuff. Why do you feel like that was a good time for the Bengals to come off of a bye? I mean, go into a bye.
Well, essentially because, first of all, this team hasn't had a whole lot of health issues in the first place this year, which is fantastic.
Right.
It's really I'm thinking more so mentality because this team I think this team got wrapped up in the success, and then they just kind of they got steamrolled when they weren't really paying attention. And I think the bye week's a good chance for them to mentally reset and mentally put their minds back into the position that they really needed to be. And like for such a young team, I think having a chance to step back and look at the grander picture, and then also have a little bit extra time to prepare for your next opponent, I think that's huge for them.
Right. I mean, yeah, I just wanted to get your perspective on it because, like, for me, I might be aggressive with like my thoughts and stuff like that. Like, my wife tells me that like I need to hit the brakes sometimes. But immediately after we got our butts whooped by the Browns, I immediately was like, I wish we could just go play and just forget that game really quick and just go into the next game and just go do our thing, because they did. The one thing that gets lost in that game is that those first 2 drives of that game were, if the Bengals played like that and had that level of consistency on the first 2 drives of the game. Now I know we threw a pick 6 or whatever, right? But just the drive, and so I rewatched those 2 games. That is the best script that the Bengals have had all year.
So, what do you think about these other AFC North teams then? I mean, you were just talking about Nick Chubb and the Browns, and what they were kind of able to do to us. So, I mean, like, what do you think you think we can split with them still?
For sure. But to respect our opponent, right?
Yeah.
To respect them, I will say this: you can't afford. Well, the Bengals can't afford. Brian Callahan said this past week. He said, we're not built to just be blowing teams off of the line of scrimmage. We're the one team in the AFC North that isn't just big bouldering bodies, pushing people back, or whatever. We're not built like that. We're very unique in the standpoint of we have above average offensive linemen that can execute the plays that we need to do. I would argue they need to go get a center that can probably get to the second level a little bit better, and they probably need to make sure that they have another right tackle. Like, I mean, I feel like Adeniji is that. Like, the Bengals offensive line is way better than what people think. But the way that they're made up though is so different than the Browns, where the Browns could control a football game, run for 6 yards a carry, just complete a couple third downs, whatever. Like, the Bengals are built on big explosive plays, being one-on-one matchups with your cornerbacks, and your team better have 3 legit corners, or our wide receivers like Joe Burrow's just going to pick you apart all game, right? The only way you could get yourself in a situation where the Browns can outplay you, I think, is if you let Baker get in rhythm, let him do his rollouts that he wants to do. See, Joe Burrow doesn't need rollouts. Joe Burrow just comes in wheels and deals. You let him get in the rollouts. The Patriots never let him do any rollouts. As soon as he goes boot and tries to go outside, they stop that. So he can't get in rhythm. And then if you stop the run game, which is way, way harder to do than saying it, right? But if you can just limit them and have them long drives and then they come out with like 3 points and stuff, the Browns are nothing.
So how about the Steelers? I've been saying that
trash.
Since exactly since last year when they got out to that 11-0 start, I was saying this is the fakest ass 11-0 start I've ever seen in my life, and I think their 5-3, well 5-3-1 by the way, start this year has been just as fake.
Did you watch that?
I streamed that game. Yeah,
that game set football back 100 years. That was the worst. Like, I woke up, I swear to God, I just got off the phone with my bro. I said, I woke up and I checked my phone, because I did have a drink or two. I drank a little bit. I had a drink or two last night. I woke up and I looked at my phone and said, did that really happen? Like, that game sucked that bad. I swear to God, yeah. I woke up and said, did that really happen? That game was so bad. Jared Goff, if I didn't know any better, I felt like he was like married to like a Rooney or something. Why was he running 20 yards back just to get a sack? Why wasn't he
It reminded me of Dan Orlovsky.
Imagine showing that game to somebody that had never seen football.
They would never want to watch again.
That's what I said.
I was actually streaming the Browns Patriots game, but that game was awful. So I decided to just flip over to the Lions Steelers game and just see what was going on there, see if the Lions could actually pull off the win. And I posted a kind of a shorter version of me watching the overtime period, just because I thought my reactions were funny in that. And honestly, half of what I'm doing, instead of like calling plays, which is because what I'm intending to do is do a play-by-play, half of what I'm doing is just complaining because this game is so terrible. It was definitely a grind to watch. But what do you think about the Ravens? Can we pull off the sweep against them?
It's gonna be tough. The Ravens, I'm gonna tell you this. I talk a lot of people call it trash. I just call it like real stuff, like your Browns guy or whatever. Like, I just bring up real facts. Like, you weren't good for 19 years. 3 years ago, you went 0 for 16. Like, I just say real stuff. That's not trash talking. Like, that's just me showing you how comparably you are trash compared to the Bengals, like, in my mind, right? But I don't think that that's trash talking. When I get to the Ravens, you'll see I don't really have much to say. We did own them for a while, if you remember. Like, AJ
Andy Dalton did somehow.
He absolutely did. I mean, he ruined their season on that. I remember that New Year's Eve. I remember my party so freaking hard that night because I just remember, that play. Like, I remember, like, from that minute on, that was lit. Wasn't that New Year's Eve? I think, yeah.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I went out that night and I had the time of my life. I'll never forget that. But moving forward, Lamar Jackson is a guy I wanted the Cincinnati Bengals to get. And what's so crazy is Lamar Jackson for the Bengals would have never had this much success. He's the most explosive quarterback in the National Football League, and he's always going to be an MVP candidate, and he gets my utmost respect. With that said, there are ways to beat him. And we know a couple different ways to beat him. So any given Sunday, he could go crazy. run for 140, throw for 2-something. As we saw Monday, he's been brought them back 3 times this year. But the one thing I do know about the Ravens is the Lamar Jackson has to play incredible for them to win. And that's something that you don't want. And Joe Burrow can play average. Joe Burrow can play above average, and we can still win a football game because the weapons around him are still there. That's what I got from the bye week. And the Ravens prove, just to bring it all back circle, the Ravens proved that Lamar Jackson can be beat if you show him looks before the snap. And that's what we did. And the Dolphins took it to a whole nother level. They just showed him all blitz. And they actually did blitz him like 20-something times. But they came to the line. They blitzed him 25 times. That is insane. But do you know that they came to the line in a 0 blitz 40 times in that game? You probably only have 40. Like, I mean, I'm talking about bringing all 11 of your guys up to the line of scrimmage 40 times in that game. I don't think that's a formula to beat them because you need to have 2 corners that can go on an island. But that's something to expand on, and you got to show Lamar that a lot. And I think that was key. Like, people are going to take what we did to him and what the Dolphins did to him and go to the bank with it.
My second to last question for you is what's your final record prediction for the Bengals?
Oh, man, I'm superstitious as hell. I don't like doing that type of stuff. I feel like I'm going to, like, jinx them or something. Can I just, like, take the high road and just be like, the Bengals are going to the playoffs?
Yeah, that was a question I was going to ask, but I decided not to. But, yeah, go ahead and say that.
As soon as we won that Jazz game, that was the minute that we went to the we stamped the playoffs.
So my last question for you then, Zim. I'm a fan of your podcast, the Orange is the New Black podcast. I've been subscribed to it for a few years now. And you know actually who is my favorite player in Cincinnati Bengals and actually really all of NFL history?
AJ Green.
No, it's not AJ Green. I actually, I like AJ Green, but I was already an adult by the time AJ Green was getting going. So the man that I grew up being a huge fan of, and that was by far and away my favorite interview I've really heard from just about any Bengals fan ever was when you and Ace interviewed Jeff Blake. I was just like, I love this, man.
Really? Oh, that's awesome, man. I feel like sometimes we interview like so many people sometimes that some of those interviews like that get kind of lost in the sauce. Like, you know what's so crazy? I might have to hit Jeff Blake up today just to be like, what's up? See, I'm going to tell you my favorite interview of all time. Mm-hmm. It's 2 different ones. 2 different ones, I think. One is TJ Houshmandzadeh interview because he's so real.
One too, yeah.
He's so real. The responses are crazy. I'm gonna tell you another one is like, and he's actually turned out to be like a good friend. I'm working on some stuff with him now. Is Khalid Kareem, because we did so much research on this one that by the time that we came to the interview, it's like I knew so much stuff, and he was just like so mind blowing. He was like, how do you know this stuff? And I thought that was a really good one. Jeff Blake one. I gotta go back. I never go back and watch my stuff. I feel like I would critique myself too, but I'm gonna go back and watch that one like one day coming up. Like I remember a lot from it, but I do remember he wasn't that happy with black and orange. if you really watch that interview, he was kind of shying away from. He wanted to go and talk about the Saints, or he wanted to talk about like other teams. He didn't really want to talk about black and orange that much.
Yeah. No, he didn't exactly have the best experience, at least leaving. Because my other favorite Bengals player in Bengals history was Boomer, and he went out and he replaced Jeff Blake, and it really wasn't. I don't know how fair it was to Jeff Blake because he had just had a great season, and then you get like a few games in. That's true. That was really unfortunate because that was by far and away the only exciting time to be a Bengals fan in the 90s was when Jeff Blake was tearing it up. The question I was going to ask actually was, you got any other like major awesome interviews coming up? I know you just had Hakeem Adeniji on, and I was listening to that before we started recording, and some good stuff there, especially from like the mentality of an offensive lineman and stuff like that.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good too because he could have said, "Hey, I don't want to talk to y'all. I just beat this guy Jackson Carman out for a spot." could be some shaky questions. Like I know he probably was thinking that, but it was pretty cool. He's a really chill guy, and I really appreciate that. This week though, I got a real big interview I think coming up. Yeah, it's pretty big to me at least. I think it's pretty big. I can't tell you who it is because I need to confirm. Right. I need to lock down the time and the date. I'm kind of weird and superstitious about that. Like Ace be wanting to be like, tell everybody like da because like behind the scenes I talk to everybody. Like I might just wake up and just ask somebody for an interview. So that's kind of how this one was. This is somebody I've been talking to for since the draft. I'll tell you that.
Right, and, well, I'm looking forward to looking forward to hearing that. But Zim, I appreciate I appreciate you coming on to my show. You're you're I think the second guest I've had on this show. So I appreciate you helping me get my channel off the ground. I think we're going to see a lot of good things from the Bengals going forward. But anyway, y'all can catch more of what I do at Kyle Phelps 92 on Twitter, Facebook.com/thephelps. I also run the Battle of Ohio podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all that good stuff. Check out my Bengals coverage on atbnetwork.com. And once again, don't forget to subscribe here if you want more mostly Bengals-centric content like this. Zim, go ahead and let them know where they can find you.
ZimWhoDey.com. Whole lot of orange. Still going with that campaign. So ZimWhoDey.com. On Twitter is Zim WhoDey. On Instagram is Zim_WhoDey.
All right. That's awesome. But as always, I'm going to leave y'all with a WhoDey.
WhoDey.